All right, welcome in the Strength and the Things That Remain podcast. We sure are glad that you're here this evening, and we appreciate you watching. Appreciate particularly, it's easy for you to say, particularly for those that share the podcast and and buy the mugs. We really appreciate you. The Strength and Things That Remain brought to you by Escola Pottery. We're glad to have Brother Jeremiah Simpson with us. And we're really super glad to have Mr. Ezekiel Simpson.
Yay.
Yeah. And so his fish is going to talk for you.
Okay, good.
So we wanted to have you, brother, on the podcast. I know people that are watching, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people followed Ezekiels Story.
Yes, sir.
Just tell us a little bit about what happened for those that might not know.
Well, little Zeke had bacterial meningitis. We went to church on Wednesday night, and it was May the 3rd. And you want your fish. May the 3rd, and went to bed healthy. Went to bed normal. He was running around with his papa on Wednesday night at church, and man, woke up Thursday morning and unresponsive. I was teaching a Zoom class in my office upstairs in our house, and when I went up there, kids were in the house, and Bree was in the house, my wife, and when I came downstairs after teaching that class, my house was a ghost town, and I had a text that said, "I'm taking Zeke to the ER," and I had no idea. It just I come down and they was gone. My little girl was at my mom and dad's house, and with COVID, I couldn't go into the hospital. With the hospital that she took him to at the house there in Elkin, and so I was at home, didn't know what was going on.
Oh my!
And so they had him in Elkin, moved him from Elkin on that Thursday. Just kept him there for about 6 hours. Moved him to Brenner's down at Baptist in Winston-Salem, and by that time I was able to go in with him, and thankfully. I don't know what I'd done. I talking about the most miserable 3 hours of my life was sitting in that house because he was unresponsive. He had slept in on a Thursday morning. We had been out church late, you know how things are, and so we just let him sleep that Thursday morning. When Bree finally thought, I gotta go check him, and he's a wild man, but I gotta go check him. When she went in there, she woke him up, and he was breathing. But he was totally unresponsive. So. He was like at the hospital, and not to be too graphic, but throwing up nasty. I mean, it was awful. And when I got to Brenner's in Winston, he had kind of lifted up a little bit. He had kind of woke up, and the doctors in the ER actually thought, well, it's just something viral, something sick, and they just let him go home that Thursday evening. And me and Bree, parents know, and they said, no, we got to do something. And that's when, and so they put us in a room. They ran every test they could. Couldn't find out. Wasn't until Friday night that they even found out what it was. And they did a spinal tap. Little fella, where'd that go? There. They did a spinal tap on him. And we was in the hospital room, and everything was normal. Doctors coming in and out. All of a sudden on that Friday night, one doctor came in, dressed head to toe, in every suit. I mean, as soon as she walked in, I can see her face right now. My heart sank because I knew everything has just changed. And they had said he had bacterial meningitis. Well, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him. So really, in a sense, that we were kind of happy that we knew something was. But as soon as I thought, man, yes, we know what it is, then I realized how serious bacterial meningitis is. And my heart just sank. And he was sick. I'm talking about sick. I'm gonna try not to cry.
Yeah, you're all right.
I really thought on that Friday and that Saturday that he wasn't gonna make it.
Yeah.
Even Sunday too, with those few days that were right there, he was lifeless. He laid in that hospital bed, and no life. Couldn't lift his head up. Couldn't move. Just unresponsive. Basically, he could open his eyes, and that was about it. And on Saturday, my dad, being a pastor, got to come in.
Yeah.
And come in as a clergyman. And buddy, he's a wild man. I don't know where that went. He came in as a pastor on that Saturday.
Right.
And that was the first moment that he showed any life, was when Papa was standing there as preacher, but he was Papa.
Yeah.
And nobody come in except me and Bree, me and my wife, because of COVID. And we was at this point on Friday night. They moved us. Yeah, you don't talk. They moved us Friday night from just a regular room to the PICU, which is a pediatric intensive care.
Yeah.
And we were in there on that Saturday. His papa came in, and when he came in, Zeke didn't wake up, didn't get up, but it was in that few minutes that Zeke opened his eyes and looked. That was the first time in 4 days. He had not eaten anything, had not drank anything in 4 days. First time he looked into somebody's eyes, and it was Papa.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty awesome. In that moment, it was like, that was Saturday afternoon. Saturday night, still no response. And I've said this before, and I've not really told this story, so it may not even come out right. But Saturday night was in that good. Was in that PICU, and I can't explain it. But well, I can explain it because I know God.
Yeah.
There was a peace.
Yeah.
There's a peace that come in that room.
Amen, brother.
And you don't go on west. There was a peace that come in that room, and I just knew everything's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
And man, and it was no better.
Yeah.
He was no better in that moment.
Right.
I didn't know he was gonna live, but I knew everything was gonna be all right.
Amen.
If that makes sense, I don't know. And it was Sunday. He finally took a bottle on that Sunday night. He took a bottle, and he took it and then immediately threw it all back up. It was awful. But he was so sick, and on that Saturday, and I'm talking, so you interrupt me.
Go ahead.
On that Saturday, my grandpa, y'all know my both sets of my grandparents, but my dad's mom and dad, Dr. Ronnie Simpson, come up to my dad's house because honestly, I think it might have been worse on my family and our families because they were not able to come.
Right.
They just could see pictures and him laying there. But my grandpa, Brother Ronnie, came into my dad's house and came up, and we was on FaceTime with him. And my grandma, she's just a crying and talking to me and telling me she loves me and stuff like that. But my grandpa's rough. I love it. He's gonna tell it like it is. And he looked at me on that FaceTime, and he said, "Son, we either trust God or we don't."
Yeah.
That's what he said. I was like, "Thanks for the encouragement, Papa." But them words hit home, and I think it was because of that God put peace in my heart that everything's gonna be all right. Sunday came, and he got to eat a bottle. Monday came, a little bit better, and Tuesday came a little bit better. They told us 14 days to begin with. It's going to have to run antibiotics in 14 days. Turned into 21 days, then turned into 28 days because the infection wasn't gone. His infection was on his brain. It was swelling. There's so much details that go into that, but they just said, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to do this. And it was about day 10. Well, no, it was about day 15. It was about day 15 because we was on antibiotics for 15 days, and it was at least 21 days was going to have to happen. They was thinking 28 days at Brenner's, then 2 weeks at Levine's for physical therapy.
Right.
So that's almost 3 months. And so all that's taking place, and I mean this with all sincerity, it was like, and he turned a corner, and it went from no life at all. And he still, I say turned a corner, he was still sick as a dog, but as a light turned on.
Yeah.
He started getting back up, and he had lost so much weight, you could see every rib in his body. He's already a rail anyway because he runs all over the place, but he's so skinny. And when they told us 28 days, I was fine with it. I wanted him to be better. Well, this is day 15. Day 16, they come in and say, well, he's looking pretty good. Day 17, they come in, say, well, it might be 21 days, and then 2 weeks at Levine's. Well, day 18, they come in. They tell us it's time to go home.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there. Part of me was like, no way, hang on a second.
Yeah.
You don't need to go home.
Right.
But and again, he is so sick still now. But from what he was in just 2 days, it was 2 days.
Yeah.
And God healed him.
Yeah.
Right.
He's a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could give you all the details about what happened and all Doctors, when I say doctors, I'm talking about, there was so many doctors in that room. I felt like a redneck dummy because there's so many people in that room, so much smarter than I was. And but I tell you what, so many people come in, and I know that them doctors know what they was doing. They knew what they was doing. But the reason my boy's where he is right now, and just sitting in front of all y'all, is because how many people was praying for him.
Amen. Yeah.
We put videos on. My wife tried to keep everybody updated on Facebook. We had so many texts and calls, and I did my best. I probably missed some. I did my best to keep up with everybody, so we just started putting it on Facebook, and we put a video on there with Lil Z. And before I knew it, it was like 10,000 people watched it, 20,000, 40,000, 50, 60,000 people watched this video in a matter of hours.
Right.
Like, what in the world?
Right.
How is this possible?
Yeah.
And we got to see, we're hearing stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hear stories about how God moved
Right.
in people's life, and they saw how God performed a miracle. And but I got to see with my own eyes.
Yeah.
God perform a miracle right in front of me.
Yeah.
With my little boy.
Yeah, it's hard to be.
And man, I'll tell you what, he's good.
Yeah, he is.
He's good.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I don't deserve that, you know?
Yeah. My.
Ain't none of us deserve anything, but he is a gracious God.
I was praying during that time, and I was trying to think about how y'all would be feeling. I never have had a young'un that sick. Trey was sick some when he's a little baby, back and forth to the hospital with him, kind of a birth defect kind of thing. But I was trying to think about how y'all would be feeling. I remember thinking, I thought, man, I told the Lord, I said, Lord, their faith must be so thin right now. But if you could just help him maybe just a little bit, they could strengthen their faith along. Over the last few weeks, Rachel's been so sick, and there was nights that my faith was pretty thin. But it was in them times that I was so glad that I had people that could believe.
Yeah.
That's the importance of Christian friends.
Absolutely.
Is when my faith runs thin,
Yes.
I've got friends that can call
Yes.
on God. People belittle the church and talk, but I'm telling you, I don't know what I'd do without God's people.
I do not know how we would have made it. I don't know how we did make it, but I really don't know what we would have done if it wouldn't have been for Christian people all over the country.
Yeah.
I'd pray for my boy, because here's the deal, and you probably think bad about me for what I'm about to say, but I had people text me and just say, well, we're praying, just keep praying, and tell me to keep praying, and I knew what they were saying, and I was praying. But there was times,
Yeah.
especially in those first 6-7 days when he was so sick, I had no idea what, I couldn't pray.
Yeah.
And you say, well, that's terrible. One, I couldn't pray because I literally couldn't get the words out of my mouth that I wanted to pray. But again, there was so many doctors in that room. We didn't have a free moment.
Right.
It was every other minute there was doctors coming in. And I was praying every chance I could. But there's the reason that my boy's here is not because of I really believe it's not because of my prayers. It's because of the prayers of God's people joining together.
Yeah.
And, don't ever underestimate.
Right.
That's a good
We can't ever underestimate the power of the church joining together.
That's right.
Bear one another's burdens.
That's right.
It's in there for a reason.
Right.
And man, I thank you to everyone.
Yeah.
If I've said that one time, I've said it a million times in the last month and a half. I can never say thank you enough.
Well, sometimes things like that happen. It's like thank you's not enough.
Yeah.
You feel like you say it, but it's like it's not enough.
Right.
And he's talking about the peace of God. I remember my wife years ago. They found a tumor on her colon, and I just started traveling on the road. We had them. My girls were little at that time. I'll never forget it. And she called me on the way back from the doctor's office. Told me, I said, "What's going on?" She said, "It's bad." And I was on a Friday. She had to be at the cancer center the following Tuesday. And I never forget, I got in my study and I crawled up under my desk and I said, Lord, I got these 2 babies. And Lord, you put me in this ministry and I need my helpmate.
Yeah.
And just as clear as he's ever spoke to me, he said, just like you said, I knew everything was all right. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But the Lord spoke to my heart and he said, You know, when that verse came to me, he's a very present help
Yeah.
in time of trouble.
I'll tell
And
you.
I had no idea what was going to happen, but the peace of God.
Oh, yes.
And every time after that, I tried to pray. You know, God said, I'm a very present help
Yeah, tell it.
in time of trouble. And what we learn, it's one thing to say that,
Yeah, tell it.
but it's another thing to learn that
That's right.
through experience. And then sadly, that's the only way we know those things. But He is a very present help in the time of trouble.
He is.
I remember when He came home, of course, everybody was keeping up on Facebook. And our family was praying, you know, somebody was praying. I remember my wife, she came in, she said, Zeke got to come home. I said, no, they're taking him to the, you know, for the therapy. They're just moving him. And she said, no. I said, he's coming home. And I said, no, you know, I mean, you've got it wrong. And
That's how we felt.
yeah,
That's how
she
we
told me that she showed me the video, and I rejoiced in my own heart. I can imagine if that was my kid, you know.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And but the Lord is good.
Yes, He is.
When they did that ultrasound on Rachel, he had what's called hydronephrosis, and they thought that he had a blockage where his ureter goes down into his bladder. He ended up having 8 ultrasounds, and they told us, they said, sure, as soon as he's born, we'll have to take him straight to Winston-Salem and do surgery on that kidney. A week before he was born, it was Sherathon week at WKJV. I was working at Summit Building Supply at that time. I was listening to it on the radio. The Lord laid on my heart. He said, why don't you give $100 to the radio station in honor of having a healthy baby boy? I remember praying. I said, Lord, I don't know that my boy's healthy.
Yeah.
The Lord said, that ain't what I said.
Yeah.
Said, just dedicate that boy. Well, I went home. Me and Rachel was we poor. I'm telling you. We went to McDonald's. It was a big ordeal. I walked in. I said, how much money we got? She said, we got $97 and something. That's total. Everything together, $97. I said, that ain't enough. I told the Lord, I said, if you'll give me $3, I'll give it. Whew, I'm going to shout. We come to church that night. It was on Wednesday night. And I got done preaching up here at the old building. We had about 9 people. There's a deacon, stands at the back door, and as I was shaking hands, he come out and just stuck something in my pocket. He said, Lord said for me to give that to you. And he'd done that before, $20, $10, whatever. I got out in the parking lot, and I reached in my pocket and pulled out a $100 bill. Goodness, I tore the world down, son. I shouted around that parking lot. I know they thought I was the most materialistic preacher ever was. I was running that $100 bill shouting. They thought, I bet you people thought, boy, he's really proud of that $100. But I knew, just like you said. When they took him down on there, they come and got him after he was born, put him on a little old gurney and took him down there to do that test on his kidneys. And I followed him all the way to the door. And I never forget that little gurney had a wheel that was loose there. And I followed it all the way and watched them go out of sight. I walked over to a drink machine, looked out over asphalt. It's the loneliest I've ever been in my life. I can imagine, bro. I said, Lord, boy, somebody just come by right now. It seemed like the Lord spoke to my heart and said, son, I'm here all the time. You know. Long story short, they come back in. They said, go send him home. Bring him back in a month. We went to a urologist. His name was Dr. Simpkins. He looked at him and said, bring him back when he's 5.
Yeah.
Brought him back when he was 5. Dr. Simpkins looked at him and said, you know, unless he just starts having trouble. Well, he's 20. Yeah. We never did make it down there to have that. So I'm just saying God is able.
He is. Absolutely.
He's so faithful. So faithful. And you know, y'all are like family to me. Your whole family. I mean, from your mom, dad, cousins. I don't know. I just, so many of you are special to us here. And just seeing God do that in your life. When you came up for this meeting, I thought, I got to have him on for a podcast. Talk about how faithful God is.
Talk about how he's doing now. I know he got the implant.
Yeah, he's doing. I was telling somebody today, it's amazing to watch. This is he got sick. It was March the 4th, and so it's been a while now, really. And I say from what he is now to then, it's unbelievable. But even just in 2 weeks, his recovery is just amazing. When we brought him, when he was in the hospital, he could move. He's there, laying there. I couldn't pick his head up. He was like a 2-day-old. When you pick him up, you had to hold him in your arms like just an infant. And he got to where he could sit up in the hospital. And then he got to where he could stand up. He could grab hold of your leg and stand up. And he loves to play ball, so that's a help. He wants to play ball, and so that drives him,
Yeah.
It's like his daddy. And he but today, in fact, just out in the foyer a minute ago, he's running. He's running.
Yeah.
Of course, he's about to fall all over the place.
Yeah.
But he's
They
running.
said he may never walk again.
No,
right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, they didn't know.
That's God.
That's exactly right. The thing with this disease of bacterial meningitis, there's viral meningitis, there's bacterial meningitis, and he had bacterial, which is a little bit more serious than viral, and there really is no way to know what the effects and what's going to happen after you get, you're towards your recovery. And there's things that he's going to battle for the rest of his life from, and like his hearing. But there could be things 5 years down the road they say could come up.
Right.
But right now, I'm not really worried about tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because what God's done now.
Yeah.
What He's done in the last 2 months is let me know whatever happens in 5 years, God's able to take care of it.
That's right.
But right now, we took him home from the hospital, and we had to actually finish his antibiotics. He didn't even finish his antibiotics in the hospital. That's how crazy it is. We finished the last 4 days of antibiotics at home. We didn't know if anything's wrong with him or not. He went back for a hearing test, and his right ear, they said, was partial hearing. They couldn't tell how much. They said that the audiologist, which doctor of the ears, knew that he had lost some in his right ear, but couldn't tell how much. And then his left ear, no response, completely gone. So we, as far as we knew, he was almost completely deaf. And so the cochlear implants, I know a lot of people know about that, was introduced to us. And we thought it was going to have to be in both ears because the doctors told us that he had lost a lot in his right ear. He was going to have bilateral cochlear implants. And so we went back like a week later, maybe a week and a half later, to the ear, nose, and throat doctor and the audiologist, and they did another test. Well, that left ear is no response. But the right ear was completely normal.
What about that?
In just a week. And we could come up with excuses, but I know what happened. God did that. In just a week, it went from partial hearing, if any, hardly at all, to complete normal. But on May the 5th, I believe it was, he had a surgery for a cochlear implant in his left ear. And this past Wednesday, he actually got, it's 2-part. You got to do it the inside, and then it has to heal. This past Wednesday, they put the outside part of that cochlear on. And in fact, when my mind's so bad, I think he had it on while he was sitting there, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so he's doing good with that. When people, little kids or anybody that can't hear at all, when they get that cochlear, they do that implant and they put that on their ears, they have a lot of times a response. Maybe they laugh or they cry or they smile or they do something. Well, he could hear, so I didn't expect him to do anything when they put that implant on this past Wednesday. Well, he's sitting on my lap and he was watching Baby Shark. But anyway, that's his favorite show. He never liked TV until he got in the hospital. All he wants to watch is Baby Shark now. But he was sitting on my lap watching it, and the audiologist, her name's Ashley, she put it on, and she turned it on. And he didn't smile, didn't laugh, didn't cry, but he was sitting there watching, and all of a sudden he's zoned into that thing, and all of a sudden he went, like that right there. He just looked up and looked around, and I said, that's working right there. But he's doing good, and we prayed. He's a wild man. You could see in the lap in the 2 minutes, however long he sat here, he's all over the place. I just knew when they put that implant on that he'd never keep it on. I told Bree, I said, he'll never keep this on. This is going to be a struggle 24/7. And so when we asked people to pray, that it would go smoothly, in fact, that he would keep it on. And I don't know if it's he just likes it or that God answered that prayer.
Amen.
Because ever since Wednesday, he don't take it off. He leaves it there.
Yeah.
Now, that may not amaze others, but that amazes his daddy because
right.
I know him.
Yeah.
That ain't him. And he'll leave it sitting there. Now, we put a headband on him, not because he wants to take it off, but because he's so wild
Right.
that it comes off.
It comes off, yeah.
But I told him he looks like some basketball player. He's going to be a basketball player one day. But it's doing great. Doing great.
You know, I know when of course, when you was trying to make a decision about the implant, you asked people to pray about that because that was a big decision. Yeah. And I remember years ago, Abby, our oldest daughter, had some health issues, and the doctor gave us kind of like that, just a couple different courses of treatment. Both of them was going to affect her the rest of her life, and it was the hardest decision I've ever made in my life. And the reason why, if it was just for me, I would just made it and went about it.
Right.
But I knew that my decision was not for me, that it was for her, and whatever decision I made was going to affect not my life, but her life, the rest of her life.
The rest of her life.
And her quality of life and all these other things. And that was the hardest, I mean, really. I remember after about 2 weeks, they give us some, finally I just called the doctor and I said, look, I prayed about it. If it was your daughter, what would you do? Mm-hmm. And of course she gave us some counsel on that, and we prayed about it and done what we felt like we were supposed to do. But I know that had to be a hard decision. And talk about that. I mean, how
it was. I mean, what you said. If it was been my life, it affected.
Right.
And it did affect my life,
Sure.
but so minute compared to what it's going to do for his life. It wouldn't have been as difficult, but that's what just kept ringing in my mind every time me and Bree talked about it. Every time we talked to anybody about it, it's going to affect his life for the rest of his life. When he's my age and starting a family, he's going to have to deal with that. That was the hardest decision because when we was in the hospital, he was so sick that the decisions that had to be made, I really didn't have to make no decisions because it was life and death. And so that was really the first big decision.
Yeah.
Now, there was some decisions we had to make in the hospital, but nothing like that.
I remember when y'all put that out there. Of course we prayed for you the whole time, but I earnestly prayed that God would give you leadership because it's difficult to make a decision like, for them.
Yeah. My grandpa, Brother Alan Barker, he's always told me, he's always talked about the will of God to me and how to know the will of God. And there's many things he told me, but one of the main things he told me about the will of God is peace.
Yeah.
If it's the will of God, then it's the choice that God wants you to do, you'll have complete peace. And I understand that. Yeah. And I did before this moment, but this just solidified that for me that there was no question. And Zeke could be fine. I mean, he could live without that cochlear implant. But, so that was what was so hard. Because he could live with it or live without it. How do you make that decision? But there was peace. And he's always told me, son, if you don't have peace in your heart about a decision, you don't need to do anything. Yeah. You don't need to do anything, even if it's small or big. And so that's just what was ringing in my mind. Even though how hard that decision was, it just kept pounding, boom, boom. And it was evident that there was no doubt in my mind, this is what we're supposed to do.
Right. I was just thinking while you were talking, your family is so musical. And, I sing some, but I'm not musical like my kids. But I know that Trey and Gabe both tell me, you got to hear it. You got to be able to hear it. Yeah. And, if it had impaired his hearing any further, he might have lost that ability to hear. I don't know what the Lord's going to do with him, but maybe getting that cochlear implant will help him to be able to hear and be musical.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and it's a different type of hearing. The best way that they explain it is your normal hearing is like natural, is like acoustic hearing. That's almost like electric hearing. It's different. And anybody with hearing aids, I mean, that's a different type of hearing. But really one of the main things that was a game changer in the decision-making process is that, like I said a second ago, bacterial meningitis, some of the effects of it can show up years down the road. Right. So, like, there's been cases where people have lost their hearing 5 years down the road. And if that happened and we didn't do the cochlear, And it was a rush. And I won't go into all the detail, but with the cochlear implant, there was a rush of time. That's what made the decision real hard too, because in that cochlea there's fluid, and with meningitis that fluid will dry up and it'll turn to bone, and then they can't put a cochlear implant in. And so it was like, okay, make this decision right now.
Yeah.
I'm like, how you do that? But one of the major factors is what you're saying. Years down the road, he could have lost his hearing in his right ear.
Right.
And then if we didn't do the cochlear implant, he couldn't hear at all.
Right.
And so it was the hardest choice I've ever made. I will say that for sure.
Right. Well, I think I've watched you guys come through with so much grace and faith, and whether or not you were doubting privately, and I know everybody has moments of doubt when things like that happen. You handled yourself like Christians. You presented a front of faith. I don't say that lightly, or but a lot of times I think Christians fall apart when things happen, and the world sees that and they go, well, they're no different than us.
Right.
But I watched your family handle it with so much grace, believe God, even when it was hard to believe. And I commend you for that. Because I thought it was a great testimony. For what the Lord can do. And I think it helps people to see folks that believe God and then see God do things. Sure. I just love this story.
Well, it's probably yet to be seen what God's going to do. Romans 8, all things work together for the good, for those that love God and be called. And we don't know what God's going to do.
That's right.
20 years down the road in his life, but he knows. Yeah. And it's yet to be seen what God's going to do.
Yeah. In times like that, you make God every promise that you can.
Yeah.
I promised him, God, if you'll get him out of this hospital, I'll get him in every Bible college class I can. I'll get him every church service I'll have him in. Yeah. But I mean, our front, like you were saying, of course everybody doubts at times, like you were saying. But I mean, there was times me and my wife, we just sit in the hospital room, and we just look at each other, couldn't talk, just crying. Oh. And you're gonna have that time.
Them slow days.
You're gonna have days where you don't understand. I mean, if I have to ask God why.
And situations like this and other things, it reminds you how helpless you are.
Yes.
And that is one of the most gut-wrenching feelings. Yeah. To see someone you love laying there.
Because as a parent,
and
that's your whole life.
You're helpless.
Right. You're a parent. If you don't feel like this as a parent, at least I do. I want to give him everything. I give him my life if I could.
Yeah.
And I couldn't do anything for him. He was just laying there. That may have been the hardest part of it, is that it was out of my hands, I couldn't do anything. And I think that's what helped me. Right. Not at first, because it was hard.
Yeah.
But I came to this realization that I can't do anything. Yeah. I've got to have God work, because I can't.
Yeah.
How true.
And it's sad that sometimes it takes a situation like that to make you realize that.
Yeah.
But that's not. It don't have to be that drastic of a situation in your life to realize that you can't do anything anyway. Exactly. It's got to be God that does the work.
We was riding up the road last night, and Reagan, my daughter, she's the philosopher of the crowd. It's just me and her. She said, Dad, if you could have two wishes, and one of them had to be selfish, and then one of them had to be for the good of the entire world, what are the two things you'd wish for? I thought about it just a second, and I said, well, my selfish wish is I'd wish for my family always to have good health. That'd be my selfish wish. Me and my family always have good health. And I said, my wish for the world would be that they'd all be saved. And we rode just a minute, and she said, you didn't want $1 million? And I said, no. And I said, let me tell you why. I said, when somebody in your family gets sick, that's when you realize how worthless money is.
That's right.
Because you can't buy.
That's right.
You can't buy no more time with people. You can't buy health. That is useless.
You can't buy that peace neither.
No, you can't.
And I'll be honest with you, and I'm not being critical of anybody, but how people go through that without a relationship with God.
Oh, goodness.
I can imagine, having to walk through a valley like that without God. And sad thing is, a lot of people do.
They do.
And they do it ignorantly. Some people don't know. How much God will walk through them. Yea, they'll walk through the valley. He'll walk through the valley with us.
Right.
And I can imagine going through things without His presence, without His grace. I was thinking about when you said you couldn't pray. I was thinking about Romans 8, the Holy Spirit of God interceding for us with moanings and groanings that cannot be uttered. And I'm thankful that when I can't, He can. And thank God for that. And I will say this: if you're struggling, if you're going through something, the Lord, you just have to lean on Him.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's all we can do.
That's all we can do.
And honestly, it's like you were saying there a minute ago, we all doubt. We all struggle during them times. And I think it's so important that Christians handle trouble with grace. I think that's part of the discipline of Christian life.
Yeah.
It's the patience that tribulation worketh. But at the same time, I want people listening and watching to know that if they struggle, it's not odd. No. It's human.
Yeah.
It's human. We've got a great Christian doctor, and when Rachel was so sick with COVID, I was continually shooting her questions. What should I do? How should I handle this? What should I do? Trying to get her better, And I remember one evening I sent her a message, and I said, do you think she'll ever get better? I mean, she was sick. Mm-hmm. People don't understand.
Yeah.
She said back to me, she said, that's the old devil, Bradley. You need to have faith. I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
I thought, here's the preacher talking to the doctor, and the doctor's telling the preacher, you need to have faith. That's the devil. You need to have faith. I thought, oh boy, I've really shown myself here to be weak, and I don't like that. But everybody struggles. Particularly, something can be wrong with me. I can face it.
Yeah.
With your little one, with your wife.
Yeah.
Oh man, reaches your heart out.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I think God puts people in your life, kind of like that story right there. Right when we was making that decision about the implant, the cochlear implant, my uncle, Brother Jonathan Barker, he told me, he said, I know a guy, a doctor that's helped me, that's worked a little bit in that field. Y'all call him. His name is Mark. I said, okay. And, I had so many people say, you need to do this and do this. Right. But I knew when my Uncle John told me that, I said, I need to call this guy. So I called him. And we played phone tag for like 2 days. And I was like, well, we just ain't going to get to talk. And he finally called me back. And I was at a free spot. I clicked the green button and answered the phone. And I know that God would have helped us. He'd help us through it no matter what. But that man that taught, his preacher, he's worked in that field. Through that conversation is how God gave me peace to go and get that cochlear implant. Mm-hmm. And God will send you who you need in your life in the exact moment. Yeah. That man, I never seen him. If he walked in this room right now, I wouldn't know him. But I'm telling you what, it was through him. God used him to give me peace to make that decision for our family, from a little man. And I thought about that when you were saying that. God, in a time when you don't know what to do, God will let you, God will give you a way.
That's right.
True.
Whether we know it or not,
True.
God will give you a way to know.
Right.
That's right.
That's right. That's like I said when I called the doctor, and that's finally I said, look, I have no idea. I need some. And when she told me, it's just like you said, it's the peace of God. Mm-hmm. And I knew that's what I needed to do. And we haven't second guessed it. We knew that was what felt like the Lord wanted us to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, God knows what we need, when we need it, and how we need it.
How true.
And it's amazing. It's amazing just to watch Him work. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think we've established in this podcast that God is faithful.
Yes, He is.
Whether we believe Him, just you know, honestly, sometimes I look at myself. I can't speak for nobody else, but honestly, I look at myself sometimes and I think if I was God, I'd look at old Bradley and go, really? You're doubting me? Okay.
Yeah.
After all I've done for you, you're doubting me now.
Yeah.
You know? But he's just remained faithful.
Yeah.
There'll never be a time in my life from here on out. I say I'm serious. I know I'm just a person. This ain't about me. But I don't believe there'll be a time that nobody ever be able to convince me God ain't real. God don't hear prayers. God can't do miracles.
That's right.
I've seen it. And there's time and time again right there.
Yeah.
But God let me see it.
That's right.
Talk about the grace of God.
He
let me see it.
It's one thing to and we believe the Bible.
Yes.
But it's one thing to say, look what God done for these people. But it's another thing when God does it for you.
Yeah.
And you can testify, hey, what he done for them, he done for me.
That's exactly right.
And when he gets real on that level, it's just a whole nother experience. I mean,
when the Lord called me to preach, me and my dad, Daddy helped me build my first outline, and we sat down and studied Exodus chapter 6. When God's telling him he's going to bring him out of Egypt in Exodus 6, he said, I promised your fathers that land of rest, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But then I think it's verse number 8 of Exodus 6. He said, I promise to give it to you. And it's one thing when you hear God give it to your father or somebody else. When God promises you something, gives you something.
You know, I think one of the things that's helped me more than anything, as I've said this a lot, I don't have any problem believing that God will do it for you or anybody else. But I have a hard time thinking God will do it for me sometimes because I know how sorry I am.
Right.
You know, I know me.
Right.
But when I realize that God does not work in the realm of obligation, in other words, God don't do anything for me or you because you're a better person than me, or I'm a better person than you. But God works in grace. Yeah. And the reason he does anything is because he is gracious. Yeah. And he didn't save me because I deserved it. He saved me because he is gracious. And God don't answer a prayer for me because I deserve it. Yeah. He answers a prayer for me because he is gracious. Yeah. And what he do for you, he'll do for me, not because of who I am, but because of who he is. Yeah. And when we realize it's not about us, it's about him. God didn't do this for Jeremiah because of who Jeremiah is. That's right. He done it because of who he is.
Hallelujah.
He is gracious. Yeah. And he is merciful. And the reason he's that way is because he can't help but be. That's who he is.
You know, you telling that story makes me think of my great-granddaddy owned a motel and a restaurant. He had a little black man that cooked for him. His name was Claude Griffith. And my grandmother tells this story one evening after church. They went by the restaurant, and Claude was in there cooking. And she said, Claude, how you doing? And he said, Lord, my feet's killing me. And she said, well, maybe if you would go to church on Sunday instead of being up here cooking, your feet wouldn't hurt. He said, let me tell you something right now. He said, my Lord don't do no spite work. And said he also don't reward on merit. He went back to cooking. I've always thought my Lord don't do no spite work. He don't reward on merit.
Amen. That's right. That's good.
Well, it has been great having you.
Well,
I tell you, the Lord's been real in this room.
Yes, he has.
And we're going to be excited to watch and see what all the Lord does in the days to come. If time lasts, what the Lord does in his life as he gets older. You know, I'm hoping that we'll have one of these young preacher meetings on Memorial Day weekend, and maybe little Ezekiel will be preaching one of these days. But we still pray and encourage everybody watching. Just when you think about it, remember Ezekiel.
I'll take a shouting fit if that happens.
Yeah, Jeremiah size hole.
Just keep praying for him
Yes,
as he continues to heal and continues to get better. And whatever you're facing, just keep believing God. Amen. Just keep believing God. He's able.
Exactly.
Thank you, preacher.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Be sure and share the podcast. God bless you. Till next time, remember, strengthen things that remain. See you then.